Have you seen the Rolling Stone interview with Billie Eilish where she credits one of your songs as inspiration for Bad Guy?
What are you doing here?
I came back here to become the Red Ranger so I could rescue you from Rita Repulsa. I thought you got kidnapped.
The Moon issued a safer at home order, and then she sent me back here. I found that box that Rick left at our place, and bam, I was here.
Whoa, that timeline's getting crazy. But it probably goes back to normal in a couple months, you know, after everybody starts wearing masks and washing their hands properly. What? That can't be true. But is it? Nah. I have to know.
So don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to WeGetThisCovered.com.
Oh man, that was total clickbait. And now I have all these questions. If only there was a world where I got to talk to the composer of Rick and Morty myself. I got it. Man, I was starving. Okay, now I can dial this thing to the timeline where I get to talk to Ryan Elder.
I'm Ryan Elder. I'm the composer for Rick and Morty on Adult Swim, The Boss Baby Back in Business on Netflix, and various other projects. I have a traditional education in music. I started writing and recording music when I was very young. I learned violin starting at age 5. So I've always been a musician in my family, all musicians. Most of my family is more talented than I am. My dad had a little recording studio that I worked in as a kid, writing boy band songs and copying beats from Madonna songs and stuff like that I liked growing up. January 2005. And I got involved with Channel 101 and became friends with everyone there and those guys, Justin and Dan. And I worked on a bunch of stuff with Justin and Dan. I worked on the very first the inspiration for Rick and Morty, which is called Real Animated Adventures of Doc and Marty, based on Back to the Future. I wrote some music for that with Justin. It's actually the first thing I worked on with Justin.
That's so cool, because in our group, we've always said, like, well, Beyonce's not going to reach down to us to grab a song, but in our group, there's another Beyonce, right? And stuff, and we call, like you said, like a tide rises like all ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's encouraging to hear that something similar in your situation.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on probably, 50 different Channel 101 shorts over the years.
Wow.
If you're in LA and you want to get into the film business, Channel 101 is an amazing resource. A lot of incredibly talented people go through there. Almost everyone that I met and started making shows with back in 2005, 2006 are now working professionally.
It's crazy to see like the early versions of talent on that channel. You originally wrote the Rick and Morty theme song for the pilot for Dog World.
Yeah.
And it became like the temp for Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I mean, Dog World was a pitch that Justin Roiland did. It was sort of a sci-fi adventure fantasy show. So I wrote this like sci-fi adventure theme song for it. And at the time Rick and Morty the pitch presentation was going out to Adult Swim, we're just like, well, we need something for the theme song. Let's just use this for now. And they ended up editing the whole main title to it, and it just kind of always worked. And it was like, well, this is working really great. Let's just go with this. The rest is history, I guess.
Just that temp love.
Yeah, I mean, Justin did always love the track. I mean, I love the track too. I was, of course, more than willing and happy to write something new if he wanted, but he did always love that track. He was always like, we got to find a home for this. And we found a home pretty quickly, actually.
I forget if it was Justin or if you had pulled inspiration, but like he was a fan of like songs like Farscape, Invader Zim, and Doctor Who.
That's one of my jobs, especially for main titles, is you often pull in a bunch of reference material, a bunch of inspirational material. I just like listen to them over and over and over, get it really just like filled in the cracks of my brain, and then start writing something that is influenced by those, hopefully original and fresh in its own way.
So are you more kind of like emotionally inspired by it? Or are you like more of a music theory, like inspired, like with like trying to match like the vibes and stuff?
Oh no, I'm definitely more big picture, seat in my pants, sit down and mess around until I come up with something I like. I mean, I know music theory. Obviously, I was a music major in college and all that, but I don't think about it like very specifically when I'm trying to be creative. I just play around until I get something I like. Yeah,
makes me feel better because I feel like I like lean more on the emotional side of things, and then later someone asks like, well, why did you use the ninth there? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's just
felt right. It felt right. Inspiration is fickle. It's tricky, and it comes from not just one place. So it's important, I think, to get a bunch of different reference points.
I guess maybe like I think you use like an add 9 in your B flat minor chord or something like that. Is like that chromatic. And it's like maybe that chromatic step in the Doctor Who song is what people are associating.
The reason that people associate it is, I think, really quite simple. We both use a theremin as the lead. Music theory wise, they're not really that similar.
Yeah.
They both have like a pulsing groove that then the theremin goes over the top of. There are similarities for sure. I don't think they're music theory really. No, not too much.
You get pretty interesting song descriptions in the notes, like African Dream Pop, Snake Jazz. For Goodbye Moonmen, the description note that you got was that a fart sings a David Bowie inspired song. How do you go from point A to B with that?
I mean, let's take African Dream Pop, for example, because that was literally I didn't even see the script. What's African Dream Pop? Let's Google that. Oh, it's not a thing? Okay, I guess I get to invent a genre now. And so at that point, I was just like, okay, I know what dream pop is. I know what African music sounds like. I'm just gonna like pull elements from each and try to make it something that's interesting and sounds cool. It sounds like maybe a real song that someone would listen to. And so I pulled in some samples of African percussion, and actually the vocalist on that is a sample of actually a Native American vocal that I pitched and moved around to match the melody I was going for, and then synths and dream poppy stuff to give it a groove and a beat and stuff. My wife was in the Peace Corps in West Africa, and when she came back, she had all this amazing music that she was like way into and got me way into it. So it can be really tricky in terms of trying to find the right mix of how do I hit what they're talking about, what they would like, and how do I do something that is like totally poppy and grabs you right away, which is what you want the main title to be.
You do most of your scoring in the box, mostly like in the computer with like virtual instruments and plugins and stuff.
It's just faster. It's easier, faster. I would love, and it's also cheaper. I would love, that's probably ultimately the reason. Like, I'd love to get a full orchestra, let's get an 80-piece orchestra for every episode of Rick and Morty. Let's, make it awesome. There isn't budget for that. And frankly, the time is an issue because I'm often changing the music at the very last minute of the show, and that would be pretty difficult to do. So it's a trade-off, right? Like, you get the flexibility of getting to change things at the last minute, you get the flexibility of not having to spend a ton of money on an orchestra and stuff like that, but you lose that amazing live orchestra sound. We had a live orchestra for the Adult Swim Festival in 2018. 37-piece orchestra playing the music for an episode plus a bunch of songs from the show live. Outdoor festival. It was kind of awesome, making 5,000 Adult Swim fans watch an orchestra concert.
So how did that feel then to like finally hear like the live performance?
Oh, it's incredible. During sound check, when I'm out I got to stand out in the audience area in the sound booth, and that's when I can really hear what it sounds like. When you're on stage, you kind of just hear the timpani and the horns because they're so much louder than the strings. But when you're out in the audience and you get to hear what it really sounds, it's just like, wow, this is incredible. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It's addictive. Like, I want to hear my music like this all the time.
The exception to scoring in the box was Goodbye Moonmen.
Yeah, I played the guitar. I played the bass live. I worked with the drummer Joe Pusateri in LA, incredible session drummer. And yeah, we did a session for that.
You got Jermaine in to record, but you had to do it remotely, and you had like 20 minutes or something to do it?
Yeah, it was crazy. So we got in for the session with Jermaine. It was via ISD online, which is like a low latency, high quality audio. We had 1 hour total. So he had to do his lines for his character. And I didn't know this, but about 40 minutes of doing his lines, I'm sitting there waiting for my turn, and they go, okay, Elder, it's your turn. Let's get these vocals. Oh, and by the way, he's out in 20 minutes. I was like, oh boy, okay, let's do this. Luckily, Jermaine is an incredibly talented performer, and most of what you hear on that song is his first take. I used my background vocals instead of having him record background vocals just to make things go faster and smoother. So you can hear me in there as well, but like, he is just incredible and just nailed it and got it. He understood what we were going for, which was so great.
I hear a lot from people that are still trying to kind of make it at certain levels. They're like, well, I could do this if only fill in the blank. And they're like, if I was on a real show, I would have the time and the budget and blah, blah, blah and stuff. But whenever we talk to, writers and composers and stuff, it often seems like, oh, I had to get it in a day or like in 20 minutes or something like that. Like, what would you have to say to people who said like, well, I could do it if I had all day or I had all week or something, but you had...
Yeah, I would say learn to do it that's where you don't need all day. Like practice and get better and faster.
I always have this criticism of people like never talking about the middle, right? They always talk about like, I left home, I was homeless, I got evicted, and then I won a Grammy. So you're very much doing a great job of talking about the middle. So thank you for that.
Well, the middle is the fun part. That's where the actual work gets done, right? Like that's where you actually like develop the relationships and you develop the skills you need to get to that end. And I don't feel like I'm at the end yet, but you know, I definitely have had some success thanks to Rick and Morty, but I don't think I've hit that I won a Grammy moment yet.
There's always this argument in the middle of people like do work for like not exposure necessarily, but do work for relationships and do work to get paid, and then both. Based on your experience with like Channel 101 and anything else kind of related to that, how do you feel about people who are in the middle of things right now? Like where should that line kind of be of like where you're doing stuff with friends and then where you start asking for a paycheck?
Yeah, it's tough because I had a paid gig when I was doing free stuff with friends, right? I'm always a proponent of doing stuff to build relationships, to, you know, find value in an opportunity that is more than just monetary. If you purely base your opportunities off of monetary options, then you are going to be miserable. You just are. Like your opportunities need to be fun for you. They need to be inspiring. They need to be an educational experience. You know, when I took the gig of writing the documentary about Harmon's podcast called Harmontown, I think it was in 2013. I had never done a feature. I'd never done a documentary. I'd done a bunch of commercials, and I was working on Rick and Morty at that point. Dan asked me to do it, and I was like, of course I'm going to do it. It was a low budget film and all that, but it was like a huge learning experience. So the value I got out of that wasn't just the financial value. Like there was the learning experience. There was the fact that I got to say yes to Dan Harmon. You know, like these are very valuable things. It may seem like in the beginning, like, oh crap, I got to pay my bills, which is true. You do have to pay your bills. The best thing you can do is just have a can-do attitude and just say yes to as much as possible and find those opportunities, you know?
There's a guy named Kook Harrell, the songwriter and producer. He wrote like Umbrella and Single Ladies and stuff. And I remember the first time I ever visited LA.
Oh, I know Kook.
Something. Oh, do you know? Okay,
I met Kook. Yeah, he used to be a session singer where I worked on commercials at Emoto Music.
Oh, that's awesome. We would
hire him to do session vocals, and he was like a go-to guy, amazing singer. Oh, and then I remember hearing he wrote Umbrella, and I was like, holy shit, Kook.
Then that backs up his story. Then this is good because I've only heard it from him now, so I'm hearing from your side. He said at the time, because I think he said he went like 10 or 13 years or something with like no cuts. He had all the connections and he just never had a cut. But he had told everybody for their middle, he was like, don't be afraid to wash dishes, but just make sure that you're washing dishes to play guitar and not instead of playing guitar.
Right. That's a really good advice, yeah.
And it kind of sounds like what you did. You had a day gig, but it didn't get in your way of doing stuff in the evening for the other shows and stuff.
And listen, my day gig was really good. It was an awesome job. I got to write music every day. I also knew that I wanted to keep developing my career, keep moving forward, keep moving into areas that were interesting to me. And television was one of those areas.
The last question is from subscriber Cal Harrington. And he just kind of asked in general, was like, what does it feel like to be able to compose music?
I don't know, man. It feels like my life. I don't know. Listen, I know I'm very lucky as a composer and as a musician to be able to work professionally in music. And on top of that, incredibly lucky, like lottery winning lucky to get to work on a show as impactful and as fun and cool and interesting as Rick and Morty. What does it feel like? It feels lucky as hell. I'll say to that. Yeah. You know, did I work hard? Of course. But lots of people work really, really hard and don't get hit shows. I made the relationships I needed to make. I maintained those relationships. I delivered my music on time and in tune at every possible opportunity. I put myself in the position to get lucky, and that's really all that you can hope to do as a composer and as someone, a creative in this industry.
I think that's something that people like to take too much of extremes on. Some people are just like, oh, it's all about who you know, but they don't have any skill or whatsoever or taking any time to build it. And some people are just grinding, but aren't building anything to be lucky. And so it's just like you said, you know, you put yourself in a position to be lucky and just hope the universe meets you halfway.
You got to diversify your bonds. You can't just commit into one area or then your entire success relies on this one area.
Have you seen the Rolling Stone interview with Billie Eilish where she credits one of your songs as inspiration for Bad Guy?
A friend of mine sent that to me and I watched it. It was unbelievably flattering. I did the theme song for Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney.
You know what it literally is? Wizards of
Place.
Waverly Place.
Well, you know everything's gonna be a breeze. At the end will no doubt justify the means.
Yes, please.
I love those two so much. Like everything they do is just incredible, and just even if I was just like subconsciously involved in their success, it's like so freaking cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
That's how you know you made it. Like you're subconsciously involved in someone else's success.
It's cool to be an influence on someone, you know, especially someone as cool and big as they are.
And then you had mentioned before, I think I read somewhere, so correct me if I'm wrong. Oh man, this timeline's getting kind of boring. Well, if you want to see an extended interview with Rick and Morty composer Ryan Elder, go to my personal channel right here. It has the whole interview. There's a lot more stuff that we talked about that we didn't put in this video. And if you'd like to see more interviews with legendary composers like Ron Wasserman, who did the X-Men theme song, the Power Rangers theme song, and the Silvershires that did Gummy Bears and Tailspin, check them out right over here. And until next time, don't forget to do the wrong things with the right people.